They claimed that the video was phony and that Camron would never cross that line. But then the audio came out uncut and raw. And let me tell you something, it destroyed everything Chrissy had worked so hard to hide. So what did she say? Nothing significant, just acknowledged that she had been using Jim Jones as a pawn while skulking around with Cam behind the scenes for years. And worst of all, Cam purposefully recorded it. The question now is, was this all set up from the beginning? Did Camron play the part? Isn't love and hip-hop drama? It's courtroom-level betrayal with studio receipts, burner phones, and a voice memo that could destroy an entire legacy. Jim Jones didn't cry or scream. Instead, he just sat there listening as if he'd just watched his entire relationship. His brand and his name get set on fire, and he couldn't do anything about it. Long game, Chrissy Lampkin, Camron, and Jim Jones recently got into a scandal that has not only rocked Dipset to its core, but also the internet. Was she ever truly loyal, or was she just a well-dressed time bomb waiting to go viral? Hold on tight, because what you're about to hear could be the end of everything they built. You know what's worse than a breakup? A broadcast betrayal. And that's exactly what happened between Chrissy Lampkin and Jim Jones. If it was all a lie, it began like any other messy internet rumor, with a few whispers, a dubious direct message leak, and then all of a sudden, an audio file appeared. This isn't just any audio, though. It's private. It's time-stamped and raw footage of Chrissy Lampkin allegedly telling Camron, not Jim, that she never stopped thinking about him. The worst part is that she drinks wine, laughs, and refers to Jim as a brand, not a man. Took down 3 group chats and made Twitter a funeral. But let's go back a bit, because insiders close to Cam's team claim that this audio leak wasn't accidental. Rather, it was a calculated, cold-blooded release from Camron himself. And it wasn't a slip or a retaliatory leak from a resentful friend. Apparently, Cam's done. As you can see, the tension between Camron and Jim Jones has been simmering beneath the surface for more than 10 years. Originally, the culture envied the brotherhood of Dipset. But behind the scenes, business disputes, creative disagreements, and yes, women tore a huge rift between them. For years, both parties continued to play it cool until Now Music. Let's now discuss the audio itself. According to sources who have heard the entire version, not just the 40-second viral clip. It was recorded in a private studio apartment where Cam and Chrissy allegedly connected 2 months ago. Chrissy's voice is crystal clear in this clip, with no distortion or edits. As she states, "Jim still thinks I'm in love with the idea of us." Then she laughs. Cam says nothing, and you hear the sound of a lighter flick. Then a beat plays in the background. Like, this isn't just a scandal. This is a soundtrack to sabotage. So let's not pretend Chrissy has been spotless. But he doesn't know I've been gone for a long time. I'm with him in interviews, but with you when it's real. Remember the shaky video of her walking into a posh suite at 2:14 a.m. from the Camron Hotel that was leaked last year, when Chrissy said it was her cousin? Cam denied everything. Cam didn't even reply. But now the audio makes it obvious that Cam was present and that Reggie was a ghost. The lie was layered, and if that's the case, then I'm with Reggie, who was suspiciously wearing a sweatshirt similar to Cam's. As if that weren't enough, let's examine what else was in the leak. At one point in the recording, Cam asks her, "You ever feel guilty?" To which Chrissy replies without missing a beat, "Not anymore. I gave him everything for 10 years. Now I'm doing me." I guess that doing me meant surreptitiously seeing Jim's most trusted man behind his back, according to former VH1 employees. Chrissy had been complaining for years that she felt constrained by Jim's image. One former producer stated that Chrissy wanted to change her image, so she wouldn't have to be the supporting fiancé anymore, and instead be the main act rather than the co-star. Guess who gave her that attention? Camron sources claim that Cam had been, according to an insider, Cam didn't just pull her. Rather, he managed her like a CEO, flipping a rival brand from the inside. This leads us to Jim Jones, who discovered on live stream that he wasn't given a courtesy call or any prior warning. He was mid-interview discussing his new album when his assistant handed him a phone and whispered. Something in his ear caused Jim to freeze, look down, play the audio once more, and then simply shut down. Instead of flipping a table or running out, he simply stared at the screen and muttered, "That's her." Die Pet fans everywhere realized at that moment that this wasn't just celebrity drama, but rather a real-time breakdown of loyalty, legacy, and love. And it didn't stop there. Moments later, Mama Jones, Jim's mother, took to Facebook Live with a puffy face and an intone. She wrote, "I told him that she wasn't right, but he wanted his fairy tale." With the internet doing what it does, Reddit threads comparing the leaked audio to Chrissy's previous interviews surfaced. One user shared a clip from a 2018 Breakfast Club interview in which Chrissy claims, "Cam is like family. There's nothing like that between us." However, the receipts show otherwise, and it's even more shocking that this may have been a strategic brand transfer as well as a brand collapse. Some people think Chrissy and Cam were planning their own spin. Cam's lawyer recently filed a motion to protect intellectual property related to recorded material from July to October. Yes, he is treating this leak like content rather than evidence. Do you think that pitching to streaming services that the other side of love and hip-hop is raw, scandalous, and unscripted sounds unrealistic? You're mistaken. Chrissy is heard asking Mona Scott, "Can we cut that line about Jim? It's not true anymore. I'm just playing the role during a backstage VH1 shoot." The second recording is a voicemail from Chrissy to Cam, in which she allegedly states, "I miss the old days when it was just us. Jim's too busy." We pause there because, as the world began to react to the leak, Camron himself broke his silence by posting a single sentence to Instagram with no caption. "Chasing clout? You still see me?" That last part is now a meme, and it's the hashtag Workery of the week. It's on shirts, TikTok lip syncs, and even petty tweets from random reality stars. You shouldn't have played both sides of that post, one with a black screen, with just a digital microphone drop and 4 million likes in 9 hours. There were no hashtags or follow-ups. However, what happened next caught Cam off guard. As an anonymous burner account connected to a former VH1 intern leaked a Dropbox folder containing screenshots, travel receipts, and even a picture of Chrissy and Cam boarding a private flight. The same week that Jim was admitted to the hospital due to exhaustion, Turks and Caicos, the fuse was lit again because if you were thinking that the audio leak was the climax or that the Instagram Live was the fallout, you were mistaken. What happened next wasn't just scandalous. It was fatal to the brand, the bond, and every lie they believed would remain buried forever. The courtroom was crowded when Jim Jones entered wearing all black, without any chains, a smile, or an entourage. His mother and lawyer were behind him, and Mama Jones was wearing a church coat and holding tissues like weapons. Chrissy entered 15 minutes later, her hair slicked back, her jaw tight. And she was dressed as though she was going to a funeral she had caused. Perhaps she was, but the tension reached a whole new level when Camron went inside wearing a coat and sunglasses. 2 steps behind him, his lawyer was carrying another folder with the label Exhibit C. The judge didn't waste any time in addressing the harm that the now viral recordings had caused to the public. Jim's lawyer got up first and asked for a gag order on all parties, citing emotional harassment, brand exploitation, and calculated defamation. Then he passed the judge a printed contract. It was a real signed agreement between Jim and Chrissy for the development of a co-branded docuseries. Love always wins. It included clauses about emotional integrity, brand protection, and exclusive representation. The kind of paperwork that said you don't just break hearts, you breach contracts. The judge said, carefully reading it page by page before turning to face Chrissy. "Were you romantically involved with Mr. Giles, Mr. Camron, during the planning of this series?" Chrissy didn't blink or sigh. She simply nodded once. Yes. That one word exploded in the courtroom, and Mama Jones let out a loud gasp that sounded like a soul departing. The judge went on, "Were you aware that this relationship, if revealed, could damage the credibility of your co-branded content? Jim just looked down, his hand clenched on the table, his knuckles white and his lips trembling. Another nod said, "Yes." The judge didn't react, but the room did, and someone in the gallery whispered, "Ugh, she cooked herself. She doesn't even care." And maybe she didn't, because what happened next confirmed. A different voice snapped back. Every suspicion that the internet had been yelling about for weeks was confirmed when Cam's lawyer approached the bench. There were no warnings or theatrics, just calm words that the courtroom. "We'd like to submit one last recording." The judge permitted it, and the bailiff pulled out a monitor, which everyone turned on. It began to show slow static, and then a voice said, "I'm tired of pretending that I love him, but not the way he needs Jim wants forever." And she sat across from Yandi Smith in what appeared to be a production trail. "I just wanted a moment, and Cam gave me that." Yandandi looked uneasy and fidgety, then said, "You know, this isn't going to." Chrissy sipped from a solo cup and laughed. "If it leaks, it leaks. I've been hiding for 10 years. The courtroom screen went black and no one moved, not even the judge, until he finally spoke. "Miss Lamine, is this footage real, Chrissy?" "Yes." "Do you realize that it undermines your claims of good faith in your joint business ventures?" "Chrissy, I do." The gavel didn't fall, but the damage did, because Jim's team filed a countersuit after that footage was made public. They claimed emotional fraud, intentional deception, and brand manipulation. The lawsuit was no longer just personal, was now financial and federal. However, just when things were getting too much to bear, a court clerk interrupted and whispered something in the judge's ear. He nodded before saying the words that turned the scandal into a potential criminal investigation. Homeland Security has provided this court with documentation indicating that Ms. Lampkin is now a person of interest in an ongoing case involving nonprofit misappropriation and digital tampering related to footage mentioned in earlier hearings. Mona Scott's assistant is sitting quietly in the back, to his feet right away. "Your Honor, we objected. It's outside the scope of this case." The judge dismissed the objection, but it will be addressed. Chrissy's attorney appeared to have been shaken, and her eyes dropped to the table. Her hands began to shake, and her voice began to tremble. Cam remained silent while he watched it all like a man at the movie premiere. Jim got up, but he wasn't angry or loud. Instead, he walked slowly and deliberately to the middle of the courtroom and turned to face Chrissy. The judge gave his permission, and Jim said, "Was any of it for me? Or was I just the cover story?" Chrissy didn't respond because she couldn't. The judge called a brief break, but before Jim even left the courtroom door, the media was already on fire. TMZ, Shade Room, and every disorganized YouTuber in the world were already cutting the footage into clips. And the hashtag began. The silence that followed was louder than the leak, louder than the audio, and louder than Cam's smirks and Mona's denials. Within minutes, it was trending. Chrissy admits that Cam was the one who threw Jim out of the plan. Jim deserved better. VH1 revealed the Homeland Cam files. And then, while the court was on break, Camron's team posted a teaser trailer on Twitter. In one 30-second clip, Chrissy is seen in a hotel room wearing a dip-set hoodie talking on the phone. Jim is on tour. "I have 2 hours. Are you coming?" The judge appeared exhausted as he resumed proceedings, asked both legal teams for closing remarks, and adjourned until final motions could be reviewed the following week. But in reality, the verdict had already been dropped in public. The voice on the other end cuts to black text and fades in the footage they attempted to bury, coming back in court soon. By the time Jim left the courthouse, his team had removed all of Chrissy's pictures from his social media accounts. Mama Jones refused to talk to the media, but was seen sobbing quietly in the hallway as Chrissy left through a back exit, leaving no comments but a black hoodie, big sunglasses, and the silent realization that every confession Chrissy vowed would never be made. Cam didn't leave right away after her truth became a televised cautionary tale. Instead, he remained in the courtroom lobby, chatting with his lawyer while drinking coffee. A journalist asked him, "Why now?" And Cam simply laughed and replied, "I waited for the right ending." Then, as if the credits were rolling behind him, he left. A few hours later, a final leak appeared online. Chrissy sent aid to a contact saved as MSY Mona Scott Young, saying, "Delete everything." He knows it's over, but nothing was erased. Everything was archived, and now it belongs to the world. The brand crushed the truth, and 30 minutes later, everyone was back in, but this time, the atmosphere had changed. No one, not even Chrissy's own lawyer, the judge, or the court reporters, paid attention to her. She sat by herself as if the air had thinned out around her, as if guilt had finally set in. Jim Jones was sitting with his arms folded with no expression on his face, no anger, no heartbreak, just a man who didn't need to speak anymore because the truth had already screamed on his behalf. The clerk then returned with a flash drive sealed in an evidence bag labeled HSI Homeland Security Investigations. The judge opened it as if it were burning through his gloves, plugged it into the courtroom system, turned to the room and said, "This contains sealed surveillance audio and metadata files referencing Ms." As if the devil was taking a lunch break and had given the case to his assistant. Everyone sat motionless as Chrissy's lawyer objected right away, "Your Honor, is unrelated to the current matter," but the judge shut it down again. "We're not discussing innocence. We're discussing admissibility, and it's admissible." The Lampkin Ms. Scott Young and the management of charitable contributions tied to a VH1-affiliated nonprofit registered in 2021. I'm Mona to reroute that money, so Jim wouldn't know we used his name to promote the gala. The rest went to handling post-production. Another voice said, "Female nervous, Chrissy? That's fraud." Chrissy flatly replied, "No, that's television." The first file played was Chrissy's voice again in a phone call, and the background sounds matched a trailer that was probably backstage at a VH1 event. The courtroom remained motionless because it was not only a betrayal of the heart, but also possible federal wire fraud. Jim's lawyer stood up once more and asked for immediate approval to submit these findings into our current motion for emotional sabotage and brand defamation. The judge nodded. Jim's name, likeness, and reputation were used in charity materials to divert funds back into unapproved production costs. Motion granted. That's when VH1's legal rep stood pale, visibly sweating, whispered something to an assistant, then turned to the judge and asked if they could address the court in chambers. The judge denied it. This was public now. This was viral. This was too big to be contained behind oak doors. The VH1 lawyer said, "We were unaware of the financial routing. We had no knowledge of the secondary production logs," or the judge inquired. And Ms. Scott Young, the representative, hesitated to comment. Of course she was, as Mona Scott Young had vanished from the public eye, leaving no emails or public declarations, not even a mysterious Instagram quote. She knew the tidal wave was coming, and she was already halfway to the bunker. But when she returned to court, the tsunami had struck, and Chrissy finally spoke without defending herself. "I kept telling myself that I could balance the image and show the true feelings. I thought I could love him in public and heal in private, but I lost both versions of myself." Jim didn't look at her real. She stood up by herself, not to deny anything, but to confess. "I messed up quietly, not to the judge, not to Jim, and not to anyone in particular. Perhaps out of curiosity or because this was the last page of a script that no one wanted to write." The judge allowed her to continue. Chrissy concluded by saying, "I don't expect forgiveness from Jim, from the fans, from anyone. But I want the truth on record because I'm tired of hiding behind the scenes." She sat down, and after nearly a minute of silence, the judge finally spoke. "In light of the strength of the evidence, competing corporate interests, and the possibility of continued harm to public entities' reputations, the court will grant all motions for damages pending a final hearing. In addition, the nonprofit matter is being referred to federal authorities for additional investigation." Even though it wasn't officially over, Camron had already left emotionally. He didn't wait for the final decision, so he posted one more thing to his story. She said one sentence louder than I could ever imagine beneath a clip from Dipset. And I mean, it played. And Chrissy left through the back again. This time, there was no security, no entourage, and no Minaj Jim. Jim left last, and his team attempted to entice him to it. The internet was on fire. Again by sunset, when a leaked staff chat from VH1 appeared on Reddit. Someone inside production posted screenshots of Mona's final internal message before the scandal hit the courtroom, which read, "If that footage leaks, we're finished." He shook them off and walked through the main door into the crowd. Cameras flashing, reporters screaming, but he didn't say a word. He got into his SUV, closed the door, and drove off. A video that was posted anonymously revealed a deleted scene from the Netflix trailer that Jim and Chrissy were working on. Jim doesn't know half of what was scripted. Let legal handle the rest. The comments went crazy. She used his trauma as a storyboard, and Chrissy didn't lie on TV, she practiced it. VH1 is soon to be the next Fyre Festival season. Why not both? She asks with a giggle. However, now that there is no season, no life, and no future, Netflix has withdrawn its sponsors, backed off production, and halted the series. Within a day, Mona's name was removed from the website. VH1's press contact went black. And every intern who ever had a camera close to Chrissy Lampkin began cleaning there by morning. Chrissy was unfollowed on Dipset's official Instagram account. On LinkedIn, Jim's bio said, "Rebuilding and don't ask me anything." Chrissy merely uploaded a black square with no description or explanation, and hundreds of people flooded the comment area. Was it worth it, in your opinion? They tried to bury a 3-part series that will be released next Friday, and the trailer doesn't even open with Chris. Instead, it opens with Jim sitting alone on a rooftop holding a glass, saying, "I've built my whole life trying to protect people who just needed a stage. Cam broke the last loyal one. You sold your soul." However, Cam was the last nail in the coffin. The closing lines, "The real story was never about love, but rather about loyalty and who killed it first," were followed by quiet until the screen faded to dark. There is nothing left to defend, not the brand, not the image, not even the past, just the 3 names Jim, Chrissy, and Command, a legacy that will never fully heal after the world watched in silence as they became addicted. Since it's all in the open and will never go away, we must ask ourselves, what was real? Was it the love story we all supported and the loyalty Dipset claimed to be founded on? Or was it all a meticulously staged illusion put together by producers, using secrets and sold to us as permanent because Jim Jones didn't simply lose a "it's your turn now"? Do you think Chrissy ever loved Jim, or was she just using him to build her brand? Camron didn't just leak a tape. He set the entire machine on fire and left with the only thing that mattered, the truth. Partner lost his legacy, and Chrissy entered the courtroom and tore it apart, one quote, one voicemail, one silence at a time. If you're still with us and still in shock, don't hold back. Share your theories in the comments section. If you want to keep this story going, hit the like button. If you want to see every leaked clip, courtroom twist, and hidden betrayal, before the internet forgets about it, hit the subscribe button and ring that bell. This story is far from over, and the next leak might simply revise everything you believed you knew. What